All right, all right. What's going on, good people? Peace to the family. Welcome to another episode of Nick's Knowledge and Notions NQ Science Series, brought to you by DJ the Money Coach and Seven Spheres of Money. Of course, I'm Nick Westbrooks. This is my show. And as always, this is the NQ Science Series, but it's not lab biology. It's not physics. It's not lab chemistry, but it's the science of all things that go through my mind and how they're manifested in this material world. So this is a recorded episode. You know, I'm up early, late or early, however you see it, on Friday morning, rather than Friday night. You know, I'm going to be away from my computer most of the day. You know, Friday morning all through Friday afternoon through the nighttime. So I wanted to bring this pre-recorded show to you, just so you can still have an episode for you on Friday, and you know, also to keep that consistency going, because consistency is the key. So as always, you know, like, share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And let's get into it by starting with some recap and some updates, or rather announcements, reminders. So it's going to bring my slides back up, skip over last week's outline, go to tonight's outline. No, these are just notes for myself, so I remember to hit all the points that I want to hit. Okay, so this past Wednesday we had a very brief but appetizing, you know, episode of A Story. We built up that anticipation for next Wednesday's show. We had some technical difficulties going live on YouTube, but we were able to go live on Facebook. So if you follow us on Facebook, you were able to catch that live show. But the good news is that the video is now live on the YouTube channel. So make sure you go and check that out. We did a recap of A Story is Money Monday show, and you can catch that every Monday at 6 p.m. Central Time on her personal Instagram page, Miss_story with an I and not a Y. We also introduced our topic, which we will go further in depth next Wednesday, which is Your Holistic Health is Wealth. And we'll be talking about all the areas of health and how health is indeed holistic, and how your physical health, your spiritual health, your mental health, and your emotional health are all connected and interrelated. So Storia will be starting with spiritual health, and she did that by introducing the basics of Reiki, which is something that she's been practicing for some time now. So in our next show on Wednesday, Astoria will be going into detail about everything that Reiki entails and how it can be beneficial to you. Next Friday, hopefully we will be discussing Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. I was looking around to see if my book was close by, but it's actually in the other room. It's actually in the bedroom, because I was reading a little bit before I went to sleep the other night. So I forgot to grab it and have it next to me to show on camera. But you did see the cover in the previous episodes of Nick's Knowledge and Notions and A Story. So again, if you want to join in that book discussion, there's some time. for you to read the book. It's called Never Eat Alone by Fallacy. An excellent book about the importance and the power of networking and looking at networking in its proper context. And he also gives, tips and strategies about how to be effective at networking and how to build meaningful relationships. So you can check that out next week. Nick's Knowledge and Notions book discussion on Never Eat Alone by Fallacy. So on this brief episode, I will be discussing, the main topic that was on my mind, that I discussed, that I taught to my students this week. And that topic is this idea of fallacies, logical fallacies. And the reason why I introduced this is for a couple of reasons. For one, we're in the middle of campaign season. We've had two debates so far. We've had a presidential debate and we've had a vice presidential debate. And when you're talking about debates, and arguments, of course, you always have to talk about fallacies because fallacies are common when you're listening to debates or if you're even participating in the debate yourself. So that's one reason why I'm teaching my students about logical fallacies. Another reason why I'm teaching them about fallacies is because we have a strong focus on analyzing arguments in text and crafting our own arguments. So in order to be effective at analyzing arguments and writing our own arguments and developing our own arguments, we have to be familiar with fallacies so we're able to recognize them in text, whether they're written text or video text or audio text. And we have to avoid using fallacies in our written and verbal arguments because fallacies, they're not a positive thing. They're not something that you want to use. Unfortunately, some people do use logical fallacies to help them win arguments. But if you have a smart audience, they'll see through those fallacies. And, so fallacies are something that you want to avoid. Not just in terms of winning a debate, but just also being an ethically and morally sound individual. You want to avoid using fallacies. So what I'm going to do in this session, in this build, I'm going to define logical fallacy based on the dictionary definition. And I'm going to discuss 3 popular types of fallacies. So that'll be the knowledge part of this show. The notion part of this show will be my message to you about being aware of fallacies and also the financial implications of fallacies, because this is indeed, DJ the Money Coach, 7 Spheres of Money, and there's always a financial or economic connection to all of the topics that we discuss on our various shows and programs. I actually gave you a few notions to open up with in terms of how fallacies are something that we want to avoid, but I'll give you some additional notions at the end of this build to kind of tie everything all together. So let's jump into the definition of fallacy. So a fallacy is a noun. And if you need a refresher of what a noun is a person, place, thing, or idea. So a fallacy is a mistaken belief, especially one based on unsound argument. So that's the main definition from the Google Dictionary. A couple of secondary definitions: a failure in reasoning which renders an argument invalid, or faulty reasoning, misleading or unsound argument. So to put that into my own words, a fallacy is just pretty much someone's attempt to mislead either his or her opponent in an argument, or mislead his or her intended audience, with the purpose of trying to persuade that person or group of people. Well, that's really the main thing, trying to persuade that that opponent or that judge or that audience, for the purpose of, winning the debate, winning the argument, or, gaining followers, getting people to see that issue or topic from his or her perspective. And I want to also point this out before we jump into the types of fallacies, is that fallacies aren't always intentional. So I want to point that out. Sometimes they are, but they're not always intentional. Sometimes they can be, unconscious, and we're not aware that we're using fallacies. So I want to point that out. So whenever you hear fallacy, it doesn't mean that that person is always attempting to purposely mislead you. Okay. So there's many fallacies, but I'm just going to focus on 3 for brevity. And I'm going to focus on 3 popular types of fallacies, especially during this current campaign atmosphere, election season. So the first one is ad hominem. And ad hominem is also known as the personal attack. So when someone is employing an ad hominem, that person is attacking his or her opponent's character instead of the argument. This can also be seen when someone resorts to name calling rather than staying on the topic and critiquing his or her opponent's argument. So an example of that from the presidential debate last week. Actually, there were several examples from that debate. All throughout that debate, President Trump was employing ad hominem attacks, or the ad hominem fallacy, against Vice President Biden. One specific example, which stood out to many people, was when President Trump attacked Vice President via his son during the debate. Can't quite remember what the issue was, and that's sad because that just shows you how deep, man, and how intense these attacks were, that it almost distracted me from the issue at hand. I believe they were talking about the coronavirus, but yeah, President Trump attacked Vice President Biden's son during the debate. So that's an example of an ad hominem personal attack. Another example would be if, take the coronavirus again. I'm debating with you about the coronavirus, and instead of addressing your position on, vaccines or lockdowns, I'll call you a clown. That's an ad hominem attack. The next fallacy that we're going to get into is the red herring, and I put / avoiding the issue because those 2 fallacies may or may not be the same thing. When I looked them up, they sounded like the same thing to me. But all in all, red herrings and avoiding the issue is exactly what the latter is about. Creating a distraction to avoid the issue at hand. Statements intended to be distracting from the matter or the issue at hand. So, example from the vice presidential debate from this week. The moderator asked Vice President Pence if climate change is an existential, quote unquote, existential threat. And instead of him responding with, yes, climate change is an existential threat because, or no, climate change is not an existential threat because, he started talking about taxes or raising taxes. Now, in some way, yeah, you might be thinking taxes can be related to climate change because if a Green New Deal is implemented, it could be connected to raising taxes on Americans. But that wasn't the question. The question was, is it a threat or not? So Vice President Pence went in a whole different direction with that and talked about a completely irrelevant topic. And just like President Trump using numerous ad hominems during the presidential debate, Vice President Trump used several red herrings and avoided the issue several times during the vice presidential debate. So that's a red herring when you're avoiding the issue. Another non-political example is when your spouse, runs up the credit card. You get the credit card bill, and unknown to you, your spouse runs up the bill, going shopping, and then you question your spouse about it, and he or she starts talking about how they had a long day at work and the manager was annoying. They asked you asked them about the credit card bill, and they're talking about the job, so distracting from the issue. The last fallacy that I'm going to talk about is appealing to emotion. So when you're appealing to emotion, you're manipulating the audience or the opponent's emotions instead of using relevant facts and logic. Now, since last week I told you that I'm nonpartisan, I have to give equal opportunity examples when it comes to these fallacies. So, Senator Harris is the last example on the political spectrum. The moderator asked Senator Harris about how they would handle the COVID-19 response. Now, I believe she did talk about that, a little bit, but she started off with anecdotal stories about people who lost loved ones. Now, this is not to sound insensitive to the people who lost family members and loved ones to the COVID-19 virus, but by telling those stories, she can use that opportunity to manipulate the audience to follow her way of thinking or support her way of thinking, because humans are emotional creatures. Yes, we're logical creatures. We're the most logical living things in the world, but we're still human and we still have emotions. And many of us make decisions based on emotion and form our perspectives based on emotion rather than using relevant facts and logic. So that's another strategy that debaters can use to sway their audience. let's see, appealing to emotion example outside of politics. I didn't think about this one. The previous two I thought about, but this one I didn't think about. So appealing to emotion. Those infomercials or those commercials with with the children or the animals where you can pay 5 cents a day or 10 cents a day or whatever it is. They had that sad music, and then they zoom in into that poor puppy's face to make you feel sad while the music is playing. That's an appeal to emotion right there. They're making you feel sad, and now that sadness, that will persuade you to send your money to help that poor dog. Appeal to emotion. So those are 3 fallacies right there. There are many more. There's bandwagon fallacies. There's antiquity fallacies. There's passing on fact as opinion. Fact as opinion, or dismissing fact as opinion, or passing on opinion as a fact. There's hasty generalization. There's slippery slope. There's so many, but I just wanted to focus on 3 since these are some of the most popular fallacies and some of the most common fallacies that we heard in the most recent presidential and vice presidential debates. So that's the knowledge. Let's get into the notions and then close out. So the overall takeaway for these fallacies, for these logical fallacies, is that you want to be aware of them. We hear fallacies every day. That's why I made a point to give you a political example, since that's the current event that's going on. But I also gave you, real life day-to-day examples too, because we may not be in formal debate settings, but we're constantly having disagreements with one another. We're having informal debates. We're having arguments with our family members, friends, co-workers, strangers on the internet. So we hear fallacies every day. We may not identify them as fallacies, but fallacies are just the fancy word for unsound arguments, misleading claims or statements. Being able to point out logical fallacies, that's the equivalent of sniffing out that BS. That's your BS factor. When you're able to point out those fallacies, that's the same as sensing when someone is talking some BS, pretty much. But again, like I said in the beginning, when someone uses a fallacy, it's not always intentional. So don't jump down that person's throat unless they're being blatantly misleading to you, like they're being manipulative to you. So you can it's safe to say that if someone is close to you, like your loved one, those individuals probably won't have any intention on hurting you. I mean, that's not always true. Of course, it's the closest people that tends to hurt us the most. But someone, if there's a mutual trust there, you can trust that person won't intentionally try to mislead you. So there's no need to attack that person and jump down their throat if you hear them using the fallacy. So yeah, be on your square, stay 10 toes down, quote unquote, stay woke, because there's a lot of deception and misleading going on and you don't want to get got out here. But 2020 is the year of clear vision. A lot of things are becoming more clear to us. We're seeing through a lot of BS. So that means we're seeing through these logical fallacies. Now, like I said at the beginning, this is DJ the Money Coach, 7 Spheres of Money. So of course, and I forgot to include it in last week's show, but of course there are financial implications to logical fallacies. So falling for fallacies can be expensive, and you can lose money by falling victim to logical fallacies. Various salespeople, sales programs, businesses, companies, they employ logical fallacies to get you to buy things that you don't need. This is where they kind of walk the line between being, running their business ethically and morally and not. So sometimes you might think of, network marketing or multi-level marketing. Certain network marketing, multi-level marketing businesses, can be a little deceptive in their sales practices and employ logical fallacies in order to get your business or get your purchase or get your recruitment. You also see logical fallacies employed by scammers or people committing fraud, and those can be very stressful and expensive, both monetary and in terms of time for you. And you can save yourself a lot of time, a lot of stress, and a lot of money by just being a critical thinker and asking the right questions and not jumping into something too soon. So that's on the consumer side, but there are financial implications on the business side too. If you are running a business or you are doing some type of business or some type of transaction, you want to make sure that you are avoiding logical fallacies to ensure that you are 100% doing business ethically and morally. And DJ the Money Coach always emphasizes that, of achieving that pom-pom lifestyle, but doing it in an ethically and morally sound way. So those are logical fallacies. Learn the rest of them. So you can be sharper. You can be a better critical thinker. You can see through the BS. Because it is all of our responsibilities as responsible citizens to be informed and to think critically, because critical thinking leads to problem solving. And when we solve problems, we can create a better world and the world we want to see. So I'll close out there, and I'll close this out so you can see my face again. All right, there I am. So, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us as always. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, 7 Spheres of Money. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, 7 Spheres of Money. Visit djthemoneycoach.com. Check out all the links in the description. Support our business and support yourself. Invest in yourself. And get help on your finances, because we're in the world of helping people and doing business that is ethically and morally sound. So until our next broadcast, which will probably be a story on Wednesday, we wish you, on behalf of the Money Coach team, we wish you a pom-pom lifestyle that's plenty of money and peace of mind. And come join us on the Beaches of the World Club, where there are no logical fallacies. So take care, stay healthy, stay happy, and we'll see you next time. Peace.